No Roman, no Brock. In case of emergency, smash glass, and Bobbly Lashley is your champion again. We're going to talk about it all, everything that happened at Money in the Bank, and more in just a second. Stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my tag team partner Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. And of course, it is the first of the month, so WrstlXtra gets bonafide with Gerard Bonner. Gerard, as always, I'll come to you first. Just give me, there's two things actually we can talk about today.
Okay.
Concerning yourself.
Yes, sir.
So the first thing is, I saw a little thing where Battle Slam are doing a tournament for their first championship. Talk to me a little bit about that, and then I'll move on to the second thing.
Yes, sir. So Battle Slam, which has been doing some pretty amazing things. We were live on pay-per-view a couple of weeks ago. We've just announced that we're going to have our first World Championship tournament. So that's happening this summer, which is just nuts. Like, I find out about this stuff and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is really happening. So yeah, I'm super pumped about that. If you'll notice, if you watched the last Battle Slam pay-per-view, there was a battle royal that happened where Richard King won. Him winning that battle royal got him entrance into the tournament. So that was kind of part of that. And there'll be some other things going on as well. So yeah, Battle Slam World Tournament coming up this summer.
That should be interesting. And the second thing that me and you are involved in. Sorry, Max, you know, sometimes you have to leave something.
No, I saw this and I was going to give you guys your flowers. So
you're doing 20 million things already.
I'm happy to see this. I'm happy to see it. I'm going to give you guys your flowers.
Yeah, man. So me and Gerard, amongst a whole host of wrestling journalists, which is nice to see. It's mainly black as well. We'll all be involved in WWT Live, which is Women's Wrestle Talk Live, put together by the queen that is TK Trinidad. And it's going to be exclusively on Twitch. It premieres tonight. Tonight being Tuesday for those that listen after this is live. Tuesday evening. I think it will be on almost, I think it's 5 days a week, Gerard, is that right?
It's going to be Monday through Thursday. So it'll be 4 days.
Monday through to Thursday. That's nuts in itself.
Yeah.
Where we'll be, you know, jumping on, talking about a certain thing, you know, with TK, kind of like a TMZ style apparently, and that's where TK is kind of coming from. TMZ, she used to work with TMZ back in the day. So look out for that. I believe I'm giving you like an exclusive here. I believe me and Gerard will be on this first show tonight.
Yes, we will.
So guys, look out for that on Twitch, exclusively on Twitch, Women's Wrestle Talk Live. So check that out. Now,
I'm about to make myself a Twitch account because
I think I need to as well. I'm like,
it's time to tune in.
Trust me. Now let's bring back Mex. He's allowed to talk now. Let's bring it back in. Let's go back to Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank happened on a Saturday. It's very rare that we get the pay-per-views, WWE pay-per-view on a Saturday. We got it on a Saturday this time around. And there was a lot of our people involved, not just in the Money in the Bank matches, but in the other matches as well, title matches and so on. And as Mex alluded to at the start of the show, of course, Bobbly Lashley was up against Fury, the youngest United States champion in WWE history. And of course, dethroned Mr. McMahon's protege, or his favorite project right now, Fury, to become a three-time United States champion. First of all, actually, Mex, let me go to this first. How did you find the pay-per-view in general? Because we will talk about some of the other matches as well, but the pay-per-view in general, and also that specific match, and then tell me how you feel about Bobby with the United States Championship.
I thought the pay-per-view was really good. These WWE pay-per-views are often pretty tidy, snappy, to the point, great wrestling. It's funny, the minute you eliminate silly segments from it, like it's a good show. Like, I did enjoy it. Breezy Saturday night for us in the UK is brilliant because you're not groggy the next morning, you can still rest. Apparently, the rest of the pay-per-views this year are on Saturdays, which is a bonus to hear as well. Exactly, all the time. So, then we go back to the actual match, which I know there wasn't a lot of singles matches on the card, but I think this was probably one of the matches of the night. It was just a real kind of test between Bobby, who is obviously massive compared to Theory, but Theory using wit, being a bit cunning at times, and all of that sneaky tactics and stuff like that. The crowd, we've said this for months now, at least the last 2 months, the crowd have been fully behind Bobby Lashley for whatever reason. I'm still trying to work it out. I mean, we've always been there, but the crowd are so into Bobby right now. And he's found a way in the end to outsmart Theory, become United States champion, which it's great for him. It's not quite the pinnacle where we would like to see him, but right now, where one man has the entire company in a chokehold, this is as good as it gets. So we'll take it. But I think Lashley, Theory, they both done really good jobs. I've got a slight issue with, I think they're just accelerating Theory a bit too much. He's gonna be that guy for the company, but to do all of this so quickly, I feel like he may go towards like Roman Reigns 2015 heat sort of thing, which is not where you want him to be. But Bobby Lashley, he's done a really good job in the last couple of months, and this was a nice little crowning moment for him.
For sure. Gerard, Mex mentioned, the Chief is on his private island with, 2 bouts in hostage. And so the biggest champion on our weekly TV is Bobby Lashley / Gunther. You can argue that one. But how does that help? Does that help Bobby? Does it hinder Bobby? He's holding the United States Championship, which hasn't, maybe until it was in Fury's hands, hasn't really had much significance or the same type of significance as it has had before. Do you think Bobby can revive that?
I totally do. It's funny that you mentioned Gunther and Bobby Lashley in the same sentence, because I think both of their jobs are the same at this point, to really revive titles that were once prestigious to their former glory. And I think that's clearly what Lashley is doing. It's ironic that the first championship Lashley won in WWE was the United States Championship, but obviously 2006, it's a much different Bobby Lashley than we have right now. This is akin to John Cena when he won the U.S. Championship after being a multi-time world champion. Sometimes it feels like it's a demotion. Other times it's not. And I think on one hand, we are accustomed to seeing Lashley as a world champion. He's definitely that. But to your point, with Lashley now playing the role, with Roman Reigns now playing the role of Brock Lesnar, Lashley gets to be the guy that we get to watch in that mid card. And I say that in quotes because, quite frankly, until Roman and Brock are done doing what they do, Lashley's going to be a really good representative, I think, for the U.S. title.
So we also know that after Raw last night, we also know that there's a match now set for a rematch between Fury and Lashley. Now, before when those two first had their little clash and we kind of saw that something was going to happen between those two, Lashley and Fury, my whole thing was, right, Lashley's going to win the US title and do whatever he needs to do with that, and then Fury will go on to face John Cena at SummerSlam. We've had that teased for us for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and now we're not getting that. Is that bad booking? Is like what is that?
Well, I think it could be a couple of things. I'm not fully sold yet that that's what's going to happen. Remember, it was just a couple of months ago when we were teased that we were going to get a tag team title unification match as the main event of WrestleMania Backlash. Right. And then 2 weeks before, all of a sudden, it becomes a 6-man tag. Right. Part of me is wondering, are they trying to swerve us so we don't think the obvious Cena thing is going to happen? Because the big question is, okay, what was all of this about Cena last week for? You know, like we could have we didn't need him there to celebrate 20 years. People have done 20 years before, and we just mentioned it and kept it moving. So it's obviously building to something. And part of me wonders if it's going to, because here's what I don't want to see happen. I don't want to see what was teased last night. This idea of Theory winning the U.S. title, cashing in, and now you're putting both belts on Theory, who's way too young for that. Like he's just not ready to be looked at in that manner. So I just think we're about to get swerved. I think it's going to be an interesting road to SummerSlam.
Max, how about yourself?
Yeah, I am concerned with the booking going into this. Because okay, he's missed the Money in the Bank, and this can go one of two ways, and it's giving me like Seth Rollins vibes in WrestleMania 31. He can lose to Lashley, and then by the end of the night ends up champion. Same way he's kind of lost to Lashley on this occasion and ended up with the briefcase by the end of the show. Either way, it is being rushed. I like Theory, but I do think there's a portion of the crowd where the boos aren't, you know, boo, we're booing the heel. It's boo, we do not like you. Get off our team right now. Obviously, I was mentioning before, there's elements of, you know, some drama around speaking out that happened with him back in 2020, which is probably why it's more go away heat than you know, like regular heat. But for me, it's the question is Bobbly Lashley. He's got back into this position now. Like, what is Bobbly Lashley missing for him to be on the echelon of the Romans and the Brocks? Because he's clearly rated. He looks the part. He wrestles the trademark WWE style. Yet, you know, you could say he's arguably third down from them, man. Maybe fourth if you count Drew. But like, why is the gulf? Or how do we close this gulf so that he can be deemed as one of them?
So
Gerard, go for it.
I was going to say two things. One, I think the problem that Lashley has isn't a Lashley problem. It's the presence of Roman and Brock. As long as there's Roman and Brock, we just won't see Lashley. And the closest we got was seeing Lashley as WWE champion before the titles were unified. But I just had another thought, which could make things interesting. And I'd love to see this. I don't know if we would. But what if for SummerSlam, this match does happen between Theory and Lashley? But now they raise the stakes where it's the title versus the briefcase. You see what I mean? Winner takes all. Lashley takes the briefcase, and then he cashes in. That solves this whole problem.
It does.
And this way, we know it's the last time we've got Roman and Brock. They both go off into the sunset for however long. And now we get, because here's the thing that could turn this is the way the crowd has been reacting to Lashley. It has been otherworldly the way they're reacting to him. And they might decide he's hot. Let's put the rocket on him at SummerSlam.
I know for a fact that that's not going to happen simply because
it sounds too good.
It's way too good. It's way too good. At the same time, you know what? It's not ridiculous because there's a small possibility that could happen. Even logically, it does actually make sense. It's not just a wild idea for us as Black fans or as Bobbly Lashley fans or whatever. It actually does sound like it would make sense logically as well, given Roman, Brock being basically part-timers and all the rest of it. You know, going back to Mex's question in terms of how do we close this gap? For me, I'll be very honest. As much as the crowd is behind Lashley, and that's perfect and that's great, personally, I'm not a fan of face Bobby. There's something about it for me that just doesn't work. Heel Bobby is perfect because of his size, imposing, dominant, all the rest of it. Face Bobby, it's like he comes out and obviously, you know, when he's got his music, and then it goes, he does the boom, but now he's doing boom.
That gets me vexed. I can't even lie. I'm vexed every time he does boom, boom, boom. I'm vexed.
No, I didn't mind that one. Now it's like, hey, hi guys.
It's making my blood boil. Like the fact we're even talking about it. I hate it so much.
Oh man.
But it's that at the moment for me. He's doing great work, and you know, it's nothing about, you know, his ability necessarily, but I just feel as though he just should be a menacing, like I said, dominant type of character. But all power to him. If it means you know, he raised the stakes of both the championship and himself within the company, and moving forward, then I'm definitely all here for it. I don't know what the actual answer is to bridge this gap, but we'll see.
Yeah, like Gerard said, maybe it's a WWE thing and perception rather than something Bobby can do. The only thing, I like the idea of him winning the briefcase and cashing in and stuff like that. My only thing is, again, perception. He beat Brock Lesnar in, was it January Royal Rumble?
Yes.
By Roman interference. If he comes and wins a briefcase and then cashes in and becomes champion again by, you know, the luck of Money in the Bank,
right?
Do we still rate that?
Right. I think it would be a case of the crowd would be happy, would be great. You know, it's what happens with the Money in the Bank briefcase. It's what we're used to. That's fine. But when we kind of look back and when we have those kind of arguments as to who was a great champion or who was great this year and all the rest of it, we'll look and see how Bobby won, and then we were like, he didn't pin anyone. He didn't actually, you know what I mean? So
did we do that to Big E though? Did we do that to Big E? I mean,
Big E's one was messed up though because they basically botched it and then told us, okay, Big E's cashing in tonight, guys. Like, so it wasn't really much better.
But as I said, we're used to it being the way the Money in the Bank goes. So I think in the moment it won't matter, but I think in the long run, again, like I said, when we look back at someone's kind of credibility, that's when we'll question it. In the moment, I don't think it'll matter at all. The crowd will be all over it and they'll love it and all of that. So, and again, it would just, if not for Bobby himself, I think it would just be the relief or, you know, the happiness of having the champion on TV regularly instead of on a private island.
I agree.
Private island.
I agree.
So yeah, I think it's one of those things. Moving on from Lashley, but keeping, of course, with Money in the Bank. The Street Profits, for me, match of the night. No questions about it. No arguments. I don't hear nothing from nobody. Match of the night. It kind of reminded me what, you know, how good tag team wrestling can be in WWE.
Yes.
But of course, we saw some shenanigans and we saw some messing about and all the rest of it. The Street Profits lost. Montez Ford was pinned by Jimmy Uso, but we saw that on the video replay, his shoulders were up. Now, here's my issue with this. No problem, shoulders are up, a bit of controversy. I'm expecting one of two things. Either the match restarts, but then when we saw that it didn't happen, I'm thinking, right, they're going to come out all guns blazing on Raw, and we're going to have a rematch on Raw. But within a minute of Raw starting, the Street Profits are involved in a 6-man with Lashley, Theory, and Alpha Academy. That, I don't know about anyone else, but with the way the Street Profits reacted after that match, I'm like, right, this is carrying on. But then we got them doing 4th of July stuff as well. Let's not even go there. I don't get it. Gerard, how do you feel about that whole thing with, you know, the lack of continuity, I guess, with that, you know, with that frustration from the Profits?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The 6-man tag didn't bother me as much as the fact that this was just not acknowledged. I mean, it literally was overlooked. And to me, what was more egregious than the sixth man is the first images that we have of them is hosting a 4th of July party. First of all, I won't get into the optics of them hosting the 4th of July party and R-Truth being Uncle Sam. I won't do that. That's too easy. I'm going to stay away from that. But where I have an issue is how you lost the tag titles by clearly being robbed, and the first thing you do is throw a party. Like that doesn't make. Let me say it this way: when Big Time Bex lost, she didn't come out throwing a party. When Seth Rollins lost, he didn't come out throwing a party. You know, like those kinds of things don't happen. So I don't understand it. And I think, if anything, if they didn't want to have the title match last night, build to a rematch at SummerSlam. Right. You know, give us a 60-minute classic or whatever you're going to do. But don't just leave this lingering and then, because of a party, make us forget it. Like, that's bad. It's bad because it literally was forgotten.
But Gerard, don't forget, of course, when you hate your tag team partner and there's rumors of you guys splitting up, the first thing you have to do is throw a party.
Clearly,
didn't you see the tension between those two guys? Oh my God! I mean,
when I say that was just thrown out there, I was scratching my head like, there's tension.
Really? That was random. So that was the SmackDown before Money in the Bank. They had this little, face off, and Kayla Braxton was asking questions apparently from the WWE universe. The Kayla Braxton. We'll talk. I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it later. I'll talk about that later on WWE. And so she was asking questions, asked the Street Profits, asked the Usos, and then one of them was, what's this about the tension between you two? I'm like, I had to go back through Twitter and every website and the dirt sheets, and I'm like, where was this? Where has this come from? There's been no sign of it at all in their matches, nothing like that whatsoever. So I don't understand the point of that. And it's not even like they then carried that on in Money in the Bank. That would then help it make sense. So if Montez lost, someone gets angry with someone else, and then we'll probably see something and then help it make sense. But we've seen none of that. Then we see them best buddies and pals, and obviously at this party, and then nothing happened during their match later in the evening as well. Nothing. What are we doing here? What's going on? I need answers.
They don't know. Like, obviously, and during Money in the Bank, during this terrific match that these guys put on, commentary are putting over Montez strong. Like, he looks great. His body is this, is that, and everything. I was making a joke, but I still believe it. Like, in the last month, anytime Dawkins has wrestled, he literally looks like he's wrestling for his life. Like, his life depends on it. And he's putting on good performances. Like, God bless a man that's trying to, make sure he keeps his job and doesn't get forgotten, sort of thing. He doesn't get geneted. But like, right now, like, it just looks like everything's destined for when they do this draft in October, that this is these guys going their separate ways. There's a comment here from Michael Houston. Thanks for joining us. He says, I pray that Street Profits don't get split up unless they take the route of the New Day and not turn on each other. So yeah, we get something a bit more amicable. I think I've got a way that I want it to happen. Like, let them split up, let it be amicable. But I think put Montez with Bianca.
Yeah, has to.
I think just let him be the manager, coach in the background. Let him just rest up, not necessarily wrestle straight away. Help him build up her as a character, because, like I said, I think she's struggling big time. Not through anything she's done wrong, just they're not giving her anything. And then let Dawkins just kind of be the center of attention in terms of the one that's wrestling, and that might help him get over a bit more before you then really plot some seeds and do something special with Montez and maybe Bianca together. But yeah, it doesn't look like the future of Street Profits is with gold or beyond the end of this year, to be honest.
I find it very upsetting because, I'm a one for, you know, not necessarily being too bothered about tag teams staying together. So when everyone's kind of doing the whole, I hope the New Day stay together, I was like, let them break up. I want to see something different. With the Street Profits, I'm kind of at one point, maybe about this time last year, I think I was ready for them to kind of split up because we first heard those rumors, and it very, very closely happened. And obviously they switched it around with T-Bar and Mace that's actually split up in the end. But right now, I'm now like, I don't want it to happen. I would rather see it be a thing where they become champions again, have at least one run, and then the reason why they split or after they lose, that's when this split happens. I don't care if it's amicable. I don't care if it's a feud. I'm not too fussed. I just want to see them with gold again, and then have a more of a build up to a breakup, and not just all of a sudden a draft. I don't think it helps, because in the last 4 weeks, maybe they've built themselves up again as like really strong stars. Both of them have as well. So as much as we've always said this whole thing about Montez, he's then bulked up a little bit. As we've said already, Dawkins has been putting on the performances of his life. That performance at Money in the Bank on that hot tank was crazy. Crazy. And then he did well again last night on Monday Night Raw. So for me, it would be very sloppy to kind of break them up on the momentum that they have right now. Put the tag team titles on them again, give them a bit of a run, and then we build to some kind of breakup or whatever else. And however they do it is however they do it. But I just want to see them with titles again, because it just makes sense right now. Gerard, how do you see the situation?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You know, one of the things that we forget is while they were tag team champions for almost a year, it was during the pandemic era.
Right.
You know, so they really did not get the opportunity to be the kinds of champions in front of fans to really be able to see their support and the like. And so I think they deserve that opportunity, especially now, you know, now that they have been working harder. And again, we can't overlook what Angelo Dawkins has done. Like literally, we've tried to ignore him, and he had been almost invisible. But these last few months, I mean, the dude did a full somersault over the top rope and landed on his feet. Yeah. Like, huh?
Boy's going to work.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he is putting in work. And so I think one of the things that WWE doesn't do well is I don't know that they always know the right time to pull the trigger if there's going to be a tag team breakup. And I think they sometimes break up tag teams just to say they did it. Let's never forget the breakup of the Dudleys. Whoever thought that was a good idea, right? Like it just didn't work. And there are many more situations where they broke up teams that didn't need to be broken up. You know, we could even argue about the New Day, them breaking up the New Day to give them each individual runs, only for us now to be sitting again with a New Day tag team, right? So I just think that if it's working, don't break it. You know what I mean? Let it work. And quite frankly, there's not another team right now that seems qualified to challenge the Usos. So it just seems like it makes sense that it would be this team of the Street Profits. I think they deserve another big match at SummerSlam in front of a massive audience.
Right. And just on that, at the same time, they should know, if we're going to break them up, what is their plan for the next 3 to 6 months at least? Like, they came out and said maybe a year, 2 years ago now, when the Iconics left, or, you know, that it was Peyton Royce's idea. She wanted to leave the Iconics and have a singles run, and they obliged. But with you obliging, did you have an idea of what Peyton Royce was going to do for the next 6 months? Right. Peyton Royce actively wanted to leave the group and stuff. It was actually Billie Kay that probably got herself over more with the silliness that she was doing.
Right.
At the end of the day, whoever you're going to split up or keep together, there still needs to be a plan in place for. Don't just do it and then it's like, okay, these guys are split up now, and it's like, what's next?
So what's the point? You know, just to kind of go back to Angelo Dawkins and give him further flowers. You know, I was watching, you know, his whole performance at SummerSlam, and not SummerSlam, sorry, Money in the Bank. And I don't know what it was, but it very much reminded me of D'Lo Brown. There was just something about the whole swagger, the way he was moving, all that kind of stuff that reminded me of D'Lo Brown. Of course, then him being slightly bigger, black guy who can move D'Lo Brown all day long. So I think for me, even if they do split them up, and if it's done right, again, I don't have no confidence in WWE doing anything right. But if they did it right, there's massive potential for him to have that type of career as a singles person as D'Lo Brown did. So as much as it wasn't, you know, a 6-time Intercontinental Champion and blah, 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 everyone remembers D'Lo Brown for who and how he was. But yeah, it's worrying to see where this is going to go. But, you know, again, Mex said it earlier, you know, Dawkins is kind of putting on performances and the fight for his life. And we always talk about Montez being the star. And I'm sure everyone's kind of seen the little memes after Usher's little after his little concert. Everyone's seen it. Watch this. I feel like that's what Angelo Dawkins is doing right now. Watch this.
Right.
Because trust me, he's like, yo, I'm here. You like gotta remember that I'm here. But who knows? It would just be very ridiculous to split them on the momentum more than it being any kind of sentimental reasons for us and all that kind of stuff. It's just the whole, you know, momentum that they have now. It would just be just real silly. And again, with like what Rick said, to then not have a plan for both of them. Yeah, I don't know. But this is WWE. We're very used to it, so I don't even know why we're thinking it's going to be any different, to be fair. But we'll see. Both men are doing fantastic work. And let me just shout out the Usos as well, because
yes,
we hear it all the time, best tag teams, blah, blah, blah. But then we get the whole, you know, they can't touch the Young Bucks because the Young Bucks do this and that and flip here and choreograph that and did it. But Usos' ring psychology has also now taken a further step in terms of being, and the commentator said this quite a few times, being very similar to Roman Reigns in how methodical they were in the beatdown of both guys at some point. So let me just shout out the Usos as well real quick. Let me go to some of these comments very quickly. Let's see. Michael Houston. D'Lo Brown, very underrated, of course. My favorite wrestler of all time. That's why I'm shouting out all the time. And I can see Dawkins being an Intercontinental or US champion. And let me shout out this one as well. The Young Bucks are trash. Sorry, I didn't say that. That's not me. Not me.
I think it was William Regal.
The views of Mark Houston are not the ones of WrstlXtra.
I think recently William Regal came out and said that he watched a dark match in WWE between the Bucks and the Usos. Like this may have been early Usos days, and when the Bucks maybe, I think it was just before they signed for Ring of Honor, and he said it's like one of the best tag team matches he's ever seen.
Wow, I can imagine.
It was a dark match.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And this is way before anyone really knew who they both were.
Yeah,
right.
Or, you know, put them on, you know, such a high pedestal as we all do now. That's
well, I will say this in terms of Angelo Dawkins. I really hope that we don't push this idea of a split too much, because if we're not careful, Angelo Dawkins will end up in the Maximum Male Models as Angelo Dawkins.
Angelo.
yes, Angelo. So let's be careful about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
With Marseille and Montserrat.
That joint is hilarious to me.
That is so funny. I love it so much because of how ridiculous it is. Oh,
yes.
They had me at Max do pre.
Yes.
I was sold from then. I was sold.
Absolutely.
Quickly going, keeping with Money in the Bank, but of course, obviously, we've seen Bianca Belair defeat Carmella. We're seeing kind of, you know, the possibility of Carmella carrying on a bit of a feud with Bianca Belair after she beat her up after the match, and then, of course, had an encounter with her in a tag team match on Raw. Is this the best route to go? Is this the only route to go? What is going on here?
Where's your women's division? That's what I want to know. Like, we just sat through Carmella and Bianca last summer for the SmackDown. Let's not forget that once the world opened up, the first thing WWE said, we know how to get you in front of people. Let's go down to Rolling Loud in Miami, 180,000 people, and let's give them Bianca and Carmella. Okay. And so we've had our fill of that. Why that ended up on this pay-per-view is beyond me. Why this is now going to be the summer of Bianca and Carmella is beyond me. Where's the rest of your women's division? I shudder to think that with Charlotte away and Rhea away, we have nobody else. Nobody else. I mean, listen, I love the Asuka and Becky feud. That's cool. So there's nobody else left to challenge Bianca right now? Like, this is not good.
I guess really the feud between Becky and Asuka is kind of building up to whoever's going to face Bianca at SummerSlam. We expect it to be Becky. And it's very difficult to kind of even work out who's going to come out on top if that, if that match happens. But as you said, Gerard, it's like, what are we doing with the women's division at the moment? And as Mex has been saying for the last probably 12 months, what are we doing with Bianca in terms of her character, in terms of, the substance of her feuds and all that type of thing? And giving her Carmella definitely hasn't done anything for that in any way, shape or form, because it's almost like you just know exactly who's going to come out on top. There's no arguing. Even the hardest Carmella fans will tell you the same thing. We just know what's going to happen. Would it have really been that different if it was Rhea as first planned? Mex, do you think it would have been the same?
Yeah, pretty much. The match would have probably been a bit more competitive. But I very much like, the odd, depending on what you follow on Instagram, I follow the WWE tryouts Instagram account just to see who's next and all that kind of stuff. And you just see how they kind of move around the ring, next drill, all right, next drill, next spot sort of thing. And that's exactly what this match looks like for me. Like, they're just going through the paces. Cool. Carmella does something to really tick off Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair switches, KOD, match done. We move. Like, it just seems so formulaic. And I thought, okay, this is just to give her something to do at Money in the Bank. We'll move on to something else for SummerSlam. Then Monday night comes and Carmella comes out. And I'm like, please, God, save us. And that's not going to be the SummerSlam match, I would hope. But like we said, it's just the character development around Bianca is just non-existent right now. Like, why is the number one contenders position, or those contending in the tournament, in the division, i.e. Asuka and Becky? Asuka and Becky have been main eventing Raw for like maybe 2 out of the last 3-4 weeks, right?
Right.
Like, why is that more important than the champion? Like, why is that the thing to go to? Even in this segment where Bianca came out and made a save last night, then joined up with Liv Morgan for the tag match. I don't recall, correct me if I'm wrong, Bianca didn't say anything, did she? She just came out and she came for the save and that was it, tag team match.
Not a word.
Like, Liv Morgan has now got more time on the mic to sell herself, and she will continue to get more time on the mic to put herself over as a babyface than Bianca will. And that's an issue to me.
I just don't know what the plan is for Bianca. It's kind of like, it almost feels like as great as Bianca has done with what she's been given, and as much as we can look back and tick off all these accolades that she now has: Raw Women's Champion, SmackDown, Royal Rumble, Survivor, Soul Survivor, all this kind of stuff, it still just feels as though the big build is to put over Becky.
Yeah,
and that's how I've seen it from day one. I had, you get little little flicks of hope every now and again about it being about Bianca and only Bianca. And as we've said so many times, she's out there doing, other media stuff and appearances here, there, and everywhere, and that's great. That's amazing. But it still just feels like it's right. She's willing, so we'll throw her there. She's the one that we've got, so we'll put her here. And then when we build her enough, we'll then put Becky on top, because then it will make Becky look even better because she's beaten someone who's done this, and that. And that's kind of how it was for a long time with Charlotte as well. It was like everything that was going on in the women's division was just so then Charlotte overcomes whoever the champion was, and then Charlotte looks like the best person on the planet, which I would say she kind of is for me. But at the same time, it then hurts the other talent. Like, why are we doing it like this? Gerard, how do you kind of see Bianca's run and future with this championship?
I think what's unfortunate here is Bianca's current reign and the current state of WWE really showcases the lack of depth in their women's division. And we could then make the argument we really feel the absence of Sasha Banks and Naomi. We cannot deny that any longer, okay? That is the missing link. Can you imagine if Sasha and or Naomi were both there? These are two more credible people who have main event status that could be fighting Bianca. If you throw away the tag titles, which at this point WWE has done,
May as well.
I mean, it's like it doesn't even exist anymore. Those are two people who are former champions who we would want to see in matches against Bianca. The problem we have right now is you have Bianca, you have Becky, you have Asuka, and then there's everybody else. And the tiers are, there's so much room between them. Like, I don't count Ronda because Ronda's really not that good. Ronda is just a name, and I said it. You know, but think about it. Everybody else, I mean, you have Natalya, who has the credibility and the pedigree to be a star, but right now is not a star. You know, you got Raquel Rodriguez, who they are building up. You know, you have Shotzi, who has not had the chance to shine. You have a few other people that are there that are just still almost feeling like they're Alexa Bliss. Like, she'd be a perfect person to be able to do that, but they still have her running around with Lily for some unknown reason, right? Like, so it is as though they don't know how to build the middle of their division, which is something that I thought that they were good at going back to the Attitude Era. I mean, Attitude Era, it's still hard to believe that guys like Triple H, The Rock, and Undertaker were mid-card at the start of the Attitude Era. And by the time we get to the top, those guys are running things. You know, we don't, I think they got so heavy on, obviously, the 4 horsewomen. And that's the other thing. We have the absence of Bayley. Right. So you have several main event talents, Bayley, Sasha, Naomi, that are all missing. And because they're missing, there's nobody left. You know, we don't believe in Doudrop. You know, Rhea would be a great talent. She's injured. Nikki Ash, that ran its course. So it's like, and where's Zelina Vega? Right. So like all of these folks who are MIA at this point, you know, so it's, I don't blame Bianca for the fact that the talent isn't there. She didn't drive them away. Somebody did. And now it puts her in a bit of a bind.
It's the character stuff for me. That's like, we see Becky is having a crisis of confidence right now. Like she's crashing. She's literally like shaking, like she's not well.
Nervous breakdown, everything.
Theater pieces after she loses a match.
It's
telling
great.
The crowd, and I think she's absolutely brilliant right now. And this is what we like. Obviously, maybe not to this extent, but how has Bianca evolved from the girl that came onto the woman that came onto the main roster during the pandemic, like, and has eventually got her place in WWE and got her way to being a 2-time champion? How she has not changed in 3 years.
But she needs somebody to change against. Like, there's nobody that's bringing that out of her.
I guess
that's the other problem. So, for instance, with Becky, it's her losses to Bianca, her losses to Asuka that are all driving her crazy. Her inability to win the big one takes her there. What is the thing that's going to drive? So, for instance, we saw a little bit when Bianca lost last year to Becky. We saw a little bit of fire. We saw some different promos, you know, when things were going on with her and Sasha leading up to last year's SummerSlam. We saw some things that we didn't see. She needs somebody to feed off of. And unfortunately, the Carmellas and the other folks that they've been feeding her are nowhere near the caliber of what we need from her. So we end up getting, and I love Bianca, but watching her open up Raw the other week was painful.
And here's the thing as well, you're talking about needing someone to kind of bounce off and all the rest of it. You look back at all these different people, apart from Becky Lynch, every other female who has any kind of credibility, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Carmella, who's won stuff before, Naomi and Sasha have disappeared, Bayley's injured, Rhea's injured as well. But then even you look at what any of them have done in the last year, and you can't see any kind of character development. You've seen character changes, but nothing to add to their credibility. So, you know, kind of this whole thing with a thing over her face. What? Zelina became Queen of the Ring, but yet it amounted to nothing apart from a fake English accent, which was good. But that's about it. It was comedic. Rhea's doing this whole thing now with Judgment Day. Not gone anywhere, regardless of her being injured or not. It doesn't feel like it was going anywhere anyway. So it's like there is, you know, as you said, Gerard, it's like there's nothing there to work with anyway. And that's the big issue here with, you know, unfortunately, which has a knock-on effect on Bianca's reign and you know, her non-existent character development basically.
I'll just say this one last thing. Out of all the women showcased on last night's Monday Night Raw in segments, whether it's backstage or in the ring, they all had something to say at some point. Bianca is the only woman that was on TV last night, the Raw champion, the Raw Women's champion, and she didn't say a single word.
Crazy.
Wow.
But speaking of character development, there's a bit of a positive character development happening on NXT 2.0 with the man called Wesley. At first, you know, obviously we saw the split of MSK, not Wesley's fault. You know, we had some stuff going on with Nash Carter in his personal life, and he got let go, which left Wesley on his own to kind of work it out, basically. He had this kind of weird few weeks where he was trying to find himself, and, you know, had kind of random matches with what's his big Australian Zion Quinn.
Oh, Zion Quinn. Yeah.
And of course, eventually, you know, overcame him and, you know, beat him. I think it was like 3 matches they had. He ended up winning the 3rd match. And since then, he's been cutting promos. These promos have been so heartfelt, so real. And I'm just like, wow, like we're actually getting to see how good this guy is and can be on the mic as well as in the ring. He faces Trick Williams at Great American Bash, which is tonight on NXT. Where do you see it go? For me, it's almost like a no-brainer based on who he's facing. The next person is going to be, you know, it's got to be Carmelo Hayes. It would be ridiculous if it isn't. But, you know, do you see that happening and that being a great thing, or is he just going to be just another stepping stone for Carmelo? Max, what do you think?
Yeah, it's good to see like an intentional investment in trying to get Wesley over, because a lot of the time we do see this WWE. It's not to, you know, poo-poo them, but sometimes we see people get over and they had nothing to do with it. So this seems like a very intentional effort. I always said the minute he left MSK, so to speak, that when what's the guy from NXT UK that came? Is it Ben Carter, or is that his own name?
Yeah, something like that.
He is Nathan Fraser.
Different name now.
Yeah, Nathan Fraser. Sorry, that's his name.
One.
Yeah. Nathan Fraser. When Nathan Fraser came, I thought, cool, another kind of jumpy, flippy guy. Put them in the tag team, and then that's the good way to protect Wesley. But yeah, I like this approach. He's going after people that are twice his size, and, you know, doing the job against them. Yeah, it's where it leads to. Does he get to Carmelo Hayes, like you're saying, and then maybe become a singles champion in some way, shape, or form? Or is just a bigger plan to maybe give him something to do, and I don't know, we see him on the main roster sooner rather than later, or they keep him around. Whatever they're going to do with him, I guess we'll see. But just in terms of literally, like we've just been saying, character development, he's not the tag team guy anymore. We're seeing his struggles play out on TV, and now he has something to overcome. He's got something to prove. Yes, there's development. He's moving along, and we're, you know, somewhat intrigued to now see where it ends up.
Gerard, you know, as I said, he's facing Trick Williams at Great American Bash. About 2 weeks ago, he was giving his heartfelt promo about what he needs to do and for himself, and losing and missing his friend, and then boom, Trick Williams comes out and just destroys his whole life, telling him to stop crying and all that kind of stuff. I think we're seeing the development of both guys at the moment as well, which is phenomenal to see. Wesley having a little bit more experience, Trick Williams kind of coming from out of nowhere kind of thing. You used to be, or you weren't so about it at one point, and we know you kind of changed your look. Has that further developed, and is there a possibility that this could be about Trick Williams more than Wesley?
I think so. It's funny. We were just talking about how there was back in the Attitude Era, this development of your mid card. That I think is the beauty of what we're starting to see in NXT.
Right.
We're seeing the development of two guys at the same time who, if this match goes well tonight, I think we have a situation here. I think we have a situation that could be really, really good. People want to get behind what's going on with Wesley. You can't deny the charisma of Trick Williams. Right. So these two battling each other, if it goes well tonight, I'd expect to see it again and again and again as these guys begin to rise. I don't think we should hand Wesley off to the champion just yet. I don't think it's time for that, particularly if Trick gets a chance to grow, through this whole process. And we're still trying to look at Wes Lee as a viable singles competitor. So I think this has potential to be really great for both of them. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. As we mentioned, Carmelo Hayes is facing, what's his name again?
Is it Solo tonight?
No, it's not. Who is it? Because
Grayson Waller.
Grayson Waller. Yeah.
Grayson Waller with a very, very clever little thing that he did last week. Having Carmelo signing stuff for his family, and then ended up kind of forging his signature for a contract to face him for his championship. I guess the writing's on the wall with this one. It looks like it's going to be Carmelo defends again. My question is two things: who's next? And on top of that, where's Apollo Crews?
Apollo Crews was in a segment on NXT, like some backstage thing or something, was it?
Yeah, he's been doing these segments almost like a superhero where he's thinking about what he would do to somebody, and then he kind of comes back to himself and low-key does it. So I think they're trying to repackage and rebuild him as well. Yeah.
Who's then next for Carmelo? Obviously, we've got Solo waiting in the wings. There's a possibility of Wes Lee, probably not just for now. Have we only got those two? Is there anyone else?
I mean, they could run it back to the D'Angelo, what's his name? Tony D'Angelo. It looks like somewhere down the line, Santos Escobar is going to probably break free from this D'Angelo family. And then maybe Santos Escobar as well. And maybe that will kind of turn him to a face, and then he can take on Carmelo Hayes. I loved Santos Escobar's cruiserweight run. And
me too.
I'm dying for him to get a belt again to bring back that kind of prestigiousness to it all. It doesn't look like it's going to be Solo Sikoa, because there's been rumors in the past week that he's destined for the main roster, that they're going to stick him with Bloodline.
Right.
So,
makes sense.
I mean, that's exciting to me, because I've seen this guy on the Indies before he got to NXT. And the minute he got to NXT, I said, this pit stop, just send him to his brothers, like, please.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to if they do that. And I do kind of think they missed the window to make him champion. He was particularly hot maybe about 3 weeks ago, also a month ago now. I don't know. Camilla Hayes is just clearing up that division, really. Love to see it at the same time.
It's funny we mentioned Solo and going to the main roster. The actual original plan was for him to just straight go to the main roster, but someone kind of decided last minute to put him on NXT 2.0 and kind of see how he develops and whatnot. And it's obviously worked out in the long run. It's made him look better for sure. So when he does eventually go there and kind of maybe save the Usos in some way, it would make sense. And we'll see the third brother, the third son of the great Rikishi.
He needs to save Roman. That'll be the real.
Oh, that would be nice.
That saves Roman. Oh my god,
that would
like
be nice.
Maybe Lesnar kills off Jay and Jimmy, and then out of nowhere, Solo
comes.
Like,
that'd be sick.
You know what?
Yeah.
Oh man, we need to stop saying these things, because we need to start writing for WWE.
Right.
It would just make sense. Moving away from WWE and our last little segment, we see on AEW stuff's going on. We've got Keith and Swerve kind of, not quite sure if they're on the same page. We've got, Team Taz on their back as well. But, you know, I think for me, one of the bigger things at the moment now is we've got this big TNT match with the champion Scorpio Sky versus Wardlow in a street fight. Where Scorpio Sky got that idea from, I have no idea in the world. He obviously wants to lose his championship, or maybe it's just a reason to get everyone else involved to try and help him. But we've already seen Wardlow destroy 20 security guards. So, you know, is this inevitable, or does this stipulation kind of help Scorpio Sky retain in some way? Mex, what do you think?
For the sake of that title, Wardlow needs to win. I think that's it. Like Scorpio Sky, whether it's his fault or not, hook or by crook, he's been involved in a lot of rubbish stories as champion. It hasn't worked out. That title needs pulling out of the dirt. Wardlow, he probably needs it because since the MJF stuff has ended, it's been a bit weak the last couple of weeks. Which we always doubted because AEW don't have a track record of booking big men well. So this is a chance to actually give him something to do. So yeah, for me, Wardlow needs to win it. They need to go back to the drawing board with Scorpio Sky. Maybe they do the split from American Top Team and that, you know, turn him back to a face, which he seems to be a bit more comfortable and respected from the crowd in that aspect. But yeah, I think this is just bring this pain of this TNT Championship to an end on Wednesday night.
I believe it's the same thing, but then Gerard, I'll ask you this. Mex mentioned, you know, Scorpio Sky turning face at some point, maybe sooner rather than later. For me, well, I guess my question is: do you think that would have been a better thing to do early on in his championship run, or and could it actually work after losing the title?
Well, I think the thing with Scorpio Sky is over these last few months, he's flipped sides more than the Big Show. I mean, like, it's really, I mean, like, I've been confused, you know, remember when he won the title back and suddenly he was a face? Right. And now all of a sudden we're getting inspirational words from America's Top Team. And I'm like, what? And then the next week, all of a sudden they hate everybody again with no warning. I think Scorpio Sky needs clear direction. I still never thought that him teaming with America's Top Team made any sort of sense at all. I don't see what the connection ever was. And it's just not, you know, really ballooned into something significant. So I do think he needs to lose the title because at this point, it makes more sense on Wardlow. Like Mex said, it gives more credence to the championship, gives more credence to Wardlow, and then gets Scorpio Sky involved in something that would possibly make us interested in him because he's flipping and flopping and we don't know what it is. And our only interest in him has been because of his opponent, not because of him. So something definitely needs to change in that regard.
I think I'm very much on the same page in terms of, you know, Scorpio Sky. I think he needed to have that championship in order for us to have some level of investment in him. We already got to a point, you know, at least a year, maybe a year and a half ago, where we kind of gave up hope. Well, I gave up hope. By then, everyone already didn't care. You know, and then when he won the title, as much as it was kind of out of nowhere, it kind of gave him some kind of significance for a little while. As you said, you know, we then had this, you know, flip and flop in terms of him being heel and face. It must have been the Big Show producing his matches because he would have, you know,
exactly
kind of gives some kind of explanation. But I believe the second he loses that title, again, it's just going to be Scorpio Sky who I think is relevant. He's only holding on to a level of relevance, you know, because he has that title. And again, the title came out of nowhere. It kind of feels as though it was just done because of his loyalty, maybe. And they wanted to give him something before they don't renew his contract or something along those lines. So
you said it, so I'm gonna say it. Like all these black people started coming in, and it was like, "Oh, but you were our first black person,
right?
So we're gonna look after you,
right?
Like, and that's what I think because they booked it like it was a bit meh. The only other thing I'd say is that obviously he's been injured, hasn't he? So
Yes,
maybe he's still working with this injury. Street fight's a good way to protect it. Street fight's a good way for a champion to lose, and it looks like you tried with everything being thrown against you, and maybe he's just going to be off TV for a bit longer than they thought. So we'll see.
And that's the other thing as well. It may be the best. The best decision to make in terms of changing the hold of the championship, not simply because we've been waiting for Wardlow to have it, and not simply because the championship needs to kind of, gain credibility again, but simply because Scorpio Sky can't necessarily defend it in the way that they probably plan to or want to for, the next few weeks or whatever it was going to be. And throwing on Wardlow just makes complete sense. So that's where we're at. The other place we're at is the end of the show, man.
How about that?
Guys, this has been WrstlXtra. Thank you everyone who has joined us live on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel, everyone that will be listening on Affinity Extra, and everyone that will watch the replay on YouTube. Guys, don't forget, I am a Dazzle. You can find me at Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram. The new handle, BWA Dazzle on Twitter. I'm trying to make it about me. Anyway.
I like it.
And you can follow this guy, Mex, the WrestleManiac, of course, WrestleManiac.uk on Instagram and WrestleManiac UK on Twitter. This guy down here is Gerard Bonner. Find him on the Faction Show, Bonafide. Everywhere you can find him, he'll be there somehow, because he's everywhere. Don't forget as well, as always, to follow, like, subscribe, and click that notification bell on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel, and our guys over at Wrestlings as well. Got to shout out the man them every time. Folks, this has been our time. This is WrestleXtra, and we will see you again next time.
See you later, guys.